Hello and welcome to the Celtic Ways morning briefing. I'm Sean Martin and I'm joined today by Alison McConnell. How are we, Alison?
I'm very well, thank you. Yourself? Always nice to see some Glasgow sunshine.
I'm not bad. There's only one place I think we can start today, really, and that's with the new signings. So we'll take them one by one. Starting between the sticks, Joe Hart, former England keeper, 34 years old, 3-year deal. You having that?
It's an interesting one, isn't it? I've seen an ambiguous reaction to it. I have to say, I think it's probably a good signing for Celtic. I think he brings experience. I think he's quite a big personality. I think that's welcome at the minute. I think someone coming in who's quite mouthy, who doesn't suffer a certainly or doesn't appear to suffer a crisis of confidence. I think you want someone like that coming in. I think he'll be quite commanding in terms of his backline. He'll be very vocal, and I think just he has a wealth of experience. I think it's maybe a while since we've seen Joe Hart playing particularly well for anyone, and playing consistently. I think he played maybe 10 times for Spurs last year across the cup competitions, but there's an opportunity here. I think he's still relatively young for a goalkeeper. I think he's still got plenty of football left in him. So it'll be interesting to see just how he gets on and how he fares. The length of both deals, I do think, probably raised an eyebrow. I think 3 years and 4 years. I think it's quite a deviation from where Celtic might have been previously. And I think the length of contract would have been quite surprising.
In terms of the length of contract, I mean, reports suggest he's taking a wage cut as well, and it's obviously a 3-year deal, as you said. So would you say that that's a kind of mutual commitment from both parties, that they've both got faith in each other in a sense?
I suppose you could look at it that way. I think if Celtic were ever to get Joe Hart up to Glasgow, I think there was always going to be compromises in terms of finances and personal terms. I think maybe the longevity of the deal reflects that. But I also think it could be a second wind for Joe Hart. It could be an opportunity for him to come and play on what we know can be a big stage. I think maybe south of the border there would be some scepticism about coming up to Scotland and playing here. But I think we both know there's an opportunity to come and reinvent yourself almost here. We've seen it. I think time will tell. I think he'll go straight into the squad for Thursday night's game. But I think if you look at it, if you take a step back and assess it, I think what you would have to say is that he's an upgrade on what is there just now, and the opportunity is there for him to go and make a different kind of name for himself in Glasgow.
You mentioned his experience already and his confidence and stuff. So, like, having a guy with that clout behind the backline could potentially help. But do you have any stylistic concerns with him playing under Ange?
In terms of just having playing the ball
Yeah.
out from feet, I think I think obviously there were question marks from Pep Guardiola, but I think, look, there's no way that Postecoglou's assessed him and looked at him and scouted at him and obviously come to a conclusion that he can't do it. I think maybe Pep just fancied something different, someone different. He maybe just didn't fit into that pattern. But I think, listen, Joe Hart's a player that Celtic looked at last year too. I think in terms of how they want to play and build from the back, he wouldn't be at the club if the manager didn't feel as though he had that capability.
Mm-hmm. I mean, when I was looking into him yesterday, and I noticed that as much as Guardiola clearly didn't fancy him, he never really gave him a chance to prove him wrong either. He only played once, and that was a farewell game kind of thing. So I don't actually know if there's enough evidence to suggest he can't play that way. It's just never really been given a chance because Guardiola got rid of him right away, basically.
Yeah, I think the impression that you got and the conclusion that you would have drawn was that Pep Guardiola just didn't fancy him from the off, and that's maybe just one aspect of his game that he didn't fancy or just wanted to obviously bring in his own man. I think it would be harsh to judge him on that. I think you have to give him the opportunity now to go and showcase what he has at Celtic. I think as I said, I think he'll go straight in to the team for Thursday night's game, which I think can be quite tough when you're being introduced and then not really having much opportunity to acclimatise to new surroundings. But I think he will go straight in, and I think you have to just see how he gets on and judge him on what you see and his abilities, and in terms of structuring things from the back as and when we come across it. I mean, I think for me, I understand the style and understand why managers want to play that way. I think sometimes there are moments in games where you have to just clear your lines and be sensible too. I think you saw it in recent weeks. I think just sometimes an overplaying at the back, and before you know it, I think you can play yourself into trouble quite easily and quite quickly. I think so. I think there has to be some common sense when you're playing that way of building from the back and want your goalkeeper to play out to feet. I think sometimes you need a bit of common sense with it in the mix too.
James McCarthy, then, we spoke about him the other day. I've got my reservations in terms of the scouting system throwing up these names in general, but I have to say I'm quite positive about what he could potentially offer on the field and also potentially off it, in terms of maybe rubbing off on the likes of Ismail Assoro. What's your thoughts on him?
I think he's I think you go back to the fact he brings in a lot of experience, international experience at the top level in England. I think that's welcome at the minute. I think Celtic really needed a couple of players who have just been over the course before, who understand the demands. I think obviously he is a Celtic supporter. I think he's made that quite clear before. I think he's been linked with Celtic almost since he was a 15-year-old, just coming through the ranks at Hamilton. I think it's been a long time. I think there's been a perennial interest from both parties. It'll be interesting to see just where he is in terms of fitness. I think it's fairly well known that he's had a catalogue of injuries. It will be the opportunities there now to see if he can come in and rebuild himself physically, and then just go and see what he can produce at Celtic. But certainly, I think he is a welcome addition. I think the midfield area needed reinforced. I think experience was necessary to come in and just bolster that a bit.
He's obviously, you've mentioned he's 30 and it's a 4-year deal. Do you think, I mean, we don't really know, I suppose it's what you said there, if he stays fit, then do you think that's a signifier he's probably here until he retires if all goes to plan now?
Well, you certainly think so with a 4-year deal. I'm not sure where else there would be to go once you've come to Celtic at the age he is. I was surprised at the length of deal, I have to say. I didn't anticipate that at all. I'm not sure what the nuances might be behind it and how tied in it might be to appearances and fitness. But certainly, if the club have done their due diligence, then you would expect that they're confident about his fitness and what he's going to offer. But I have to say, it did raise an eyebrow when I saw 4 years.
We'll begin into the Jablonec game more in depth tomorrow. But for now, do you think, you've already kind of suggested, you think both will go straight into the squad? Do you think any of them will go straight into the team?
Yeah, I do. I would expect Hart will start. I'm not sure if McCarthy will start or not, but I would definitely expect to see Joe Hart taking the gloves on Thursday night.
Is it? I suppose it is a baptism of fire in a way. It's an away game, obviously, but it's still been thrown in a very, very important game. So will it give us a signifier of how he's approaching the whole task of coming and playing for Celtic, would you think?
Of course, but listen, I think he's experienced enough to know what he's coming into. I think, again, you've got someone who's played at the very top level, who's been at major tournaments. He's represented his club. I don't think he'll be I don't think he's the type of player who will be intimidated by the magnitude of the occasion or will be dwarfed by the pressure that comes from playing at Celtic. You would like to think that someone of those capabilities will relish that pressure, that it'll just give him an opportunity to go and prove that he's still capable of playing at the top level. I think he is. I think he's not played an awful lot of football over the last few seasons. So again, it will be quite interesting to see just how he fares when he goes straight into the team. But I fully expect that he'll be the number one choice for this season, and I think that starts from Thursday night.
Speaking of Europe, there's one more talking point I wanted to ask you about, and that's the reports that Midtjylland are in a bit of a wrangle. See, they've possibly fielded an ineligible player. Have you read much about that?
I spoke to a Danish journalist about it this morning who was saying that he thinks basically they only got the news that he was ineligible yesterday, and that he wasn't eligible for this week's game. So when he was fielded, they hadn't actually been told yet that he was ineligible, which might colour the decision slightly, I think. So I think we'll just have to wait and see. It's just a bit of red tape, but I think they seem fairly confident that they will be allowed to progress because the decision wasn't made until after the game, that they were only informed about it yesterday. But you never know. I think sometimes that there can be strange ways of working sometimes behind the scenes when it comes to the bureaucracy. So it would obviously be to Celtic's advantage, but I'm not sure you would be wanting to hold your breath on that one.
Nah, it just is a bit of background for anybody that's not read it, although I think probably everybody will have, even on Twitter. But as far as I understand it, Juninho is his name. He was given a ban in Brazil, moved to Midtjylland after 2 games of the ban, I think, and FIFA were deciding if the ban should apply globally or if it was just in Brazil. They've now said that it does apply globally, but as for any implications on Celtic, I mean, you kind of touched on it there. It possibly might be a moot point because Midtjylland have already played PSV and they were essentially awaiting a decision rather than the guy already being ineligible.
Yeah.
Would you think that Celtic would ask for clarification regardless, though?
I suppose they would feel they might have nothing to lose. I think you might just feel, well, it's a throw of the dice. Why not? I'm not sure that there'll be the answer that they want, but why not?
It's going to be an interesting one, that's for sure. Well, thanks for joining me today, Alison, and everybody else. Remember, you can keep up to date with all the latest Celtic news, opinions, and tactical analysis on the website, where we have a superb introductory offer of £1 a month for the first 6 months. That's the best Celtic coverage around for just £6 for the first half a year. Top class value, so give us a spin and support us taking Scottish sports journalism in a new direction. Until next time, thanks for watching.